Hello, welcome back. I wanted to make a video about the canon-r simply because I also did one about the X-T3 and it was received with such mixed blessings. But I do feel that because I've been helping a lot of people going from Canon to Sony, and also on Facebook there's been many questions from people who switched, that I've become attached to some of these answers. And looking at the canon-r, I'm quite confused what Canon is thinking. And I have to think back to Sony, which in the beginning of the year said, well, Canon and Nikon will release a camera in 2018 and we are ready for them. And this is our basic model. So not this one, this A7R3, but the A7 III, they said, sort of gave out a signal, hey, this is what we can put in the camera. They put a lot of stuff in there and then said, well, this is our basic model. And maybe that forced Canon to come out into the open too early. Because I think looking at the camera, either it's been crippled by design or it's been crippled simply because they could not do any better. And I'm not sure which situation is worse. And on top of that, I think they also did some weird things that are not necessary. This is both in sort of trying to regain some of the money that they want to regain. So let me give an example. I think some of these adapters should be included for free. I think they have you can now finally charge it over USB, but you have to buy a $190 charging block to have it, because normal USB charging doesn't work, and it also just works from a plug in the wall. I think that's just you trying to get the money back, which is is kind of weird. What I don't understand fundamentally is why you made the jump so hard. So you could have been ready for a few years because you knew what Sony was doing and you know how technology evolved. You didn't want to do it, but you were preparing. You clearly were preparing because the whole new mount seems to be very well designed, very well thought out. And since you already have like at least 4 lenses ready, that means that you've been working on this for quite a while. So, but the body seems to be sort of, the only thing I can say, confused in many ways. So it feels nice. I actually like the design. I like some of the design elements. I love that the shutter goes down the moment that the camera is turned off. I think that's a very good idea. I hope Sony does that too soon. I doubt they will. Maybe once they remove the shutter completely, they have some room to put something in there. I'm not sure about the IBIS. I think it's weird that some of the new brands are not putting IBIS in. It almost makes me think, do they know something that Sony and the others are not aware of? And I think, to me, fundamentally, I like that they are removing moving parts, like the mirror, and I'm pretty sure the shutter will also go. And maybe some of the other brands are thinking, well, when we get a higher and higher pixel count, we actually don't need IBIS anymore, because software at some point will do most of the job that the IBIS is doing, and it's fundamentally wrong to put more moving parts into a camera. I don't know. That's one still makes me doubt. What I don't get is that Canon kind of made it harder for switchers. And one thing I really don't understand, that this camera, most likely, so this is an A7R3, but the A7 III and the A9 are the same. You can help people set up the camera to be quite similar to something that they're used to. So let's say a Canon 5D Mark IV, for example, because you have the dial, you have a joystick, you kind of have the front dial, but it's kind of over here, but it's generally in the same area. These buttons are kind of the same. You have an extra wheel here, but you kind of within a few weeks can feel at home. And I don't understand why part of the design team started rethinking all the control surfaces. So even the one on the lens, but especially removing the joystick and this trackpad which they put over here. It seems to me you're making it harder for people to really jump into your mirrorless line. And I think it's not a smart idea. The same is sort of true for some of the features that people are used to, and they're basically doing a step back. And maybe that's because Sony put too much price pressure on them, because they are now using the processor version 8 in it. I'm not really sure, I couldn't find the specs on it, but it seems to me that it's underpowered for the camera that they're using, right? So you see this crop in video, for example, which is basically, if you do the calculation, means that they're only using the inner part, just the 8 million pixels you need for 4K. So no nice downscaling of the video, which gives you a sharper image. No nice, of course, you can't use your full width of your lenses. There's been a lot of complaining about this online. You see it in some of the features that are simply not up to par. So the silent shooting, which is only possible in some single shot. The IEF that they implemented, but it doesn't sound perfect and it doesn't still yet work in continuous mode. The whole camera feels to me that it's underpowered. And in some of their more high-end cameras, they're actually using an older processor. I think the 6 is probably the best one. Again, I'm not a Canon user, but if you look at the 6 and the 6 Plus, they are either used alone or in some cameras in combination. So they have two CPUs in there, and the 6 and the 6 Plus combined seem to be much more capable. And maybe they plan to put it into the camera, but they couldn't make the price point that basically Sony set out for them to try to mimic. So I think, and that's the other thing that is possible, that the new version, so the version 8 of the CPU is strong enough to do all of these things, but the developers didn't get enough time to implement some of the features. If you really want to think badly about it, that could be for two reasons. They were forced out of the door. Because Nikon was introducing it. Nikon took the route of calling it a beta release and then blaming all the features on that. Canon said no, this is going to be the production version that everybody's playing with, but they left on purpose some features out that were not ready, or they always plan to leave out, but given the amount of feedback they are getting from reviewers, they are now sort of backtracking and say, well, it's coming in a firmware update. That could also be a trick that they are kind of doing. Good examples are that they are now already, they got so much complaints that the IF is only working in single shot, that they are now saying, well, we will at some point, it's unclear when, I hear soon, and others says might be another 4 or 5 months, but at some point they will enable IEF in continuous shooting. The same with silent shooting. You can only do silent shooting one shot, which I wouldn't say is useless. I don't agree with some of the reviewers there, but it at least is not as handy as being able to do it in burst mode. And they said they're also going to enable that, and there are some other features that they might sort of come back to and say, well, we are getting quite a lot of bad negative feedback on that, we will reintroduce them. It also seems to me, and it's kind of in the same line, that the shaving of some of these features to either regain money, basically to be able to get to the price point that they wanted it to, or that they're trying to sort of get the money back in other ways, right? So one thing, for example, you can now charge it like the Sony's over USB. So Sony can do it over both its USB ports, so the USB-C and a normal USB port. The Canon one, you can only do it over USB-C and only on the newer batteries, if I'm correct. Like the Nikon can also only do it on newer batteries. And you have to get, for the Canon at least, an external USB plug, which only plugs into the wall, and it's $190. I mean, that's just silly. That's just you trying to get some money back because you couldn't get the profit margins of the body on the body itself. And I'm not sure if that's good news, because that means that either Canon is not able to match Sony and Fuji, and maybe also Panasonic, we will know in a few weeks, simply getting the price down to the point that they need to be, or that they are sort of limiting some of these features because they are doing what they say is their normal tricks, if you listen to Canon owners. Both would probably be bad. I'm not sure which one is worst, because if they're really not capable of moving faster, and matching Sony in some of these features. Because let's be clear, I don't think the Canon-R is matching the A7 III, and definitely also not the A7R III. And I find it quite funny, although they are in the different price range. I kind of agree. Although the Nikon 7 is in my country getting close to a Sony A9, but nobody's even comparing it anymore with the A9 because it's technologically so much ahead in some of the things that it's doing. You can argue about some of the ergonomics and stuff like that, but if you purely look at the amount of horsepower that Sony put in, the kind of tricks with the shutter that they are putting in, and the resulting features, which I'm convinced that they are going to put in the next A7 line, is something that Canon and Nikon are not able to match in 2018. And in a way, I hope it's true, because I am biased, right? Let me be fair about it. So in a way, it's nice to see that your camera that you put your money in is still the best in the areas where you think it's important. But it's also kind of sad, because it means that there's definitely only 2 or 3 brands now kind of battling with each other, and Canon and Nikon will be not part of that fight, which makes all the products better to begin with. So yeah, tell me what you think. I'm not even sure what I talked about in this video. I might have forgotten a few things, but I think it's like I said, it's a very confusing release from Canon. And I've been watching a lot of reviews, and if you are interested in this camera, I'm pretty sure you have also watched a lot of these reviews. I'm not sure. It might be a big hit in sales, because then we are talking more about marketing and about the Canon brand, which is still strong. And maybe the looks of the camera and the story that they are telling is good enough to propel them into version 2. Right? Because I noticed that a lot of reviewers are already coming out with the line, well, this is good enough for your current owners today, and it's a good start, but the next version will be better. It's a good start, but the Pro version will be better. It's a good start, but the next firmware will be better. And that's kind of yeah, the best thing that they could reach in a way, it seems. And I think it could be that from a marketing point of view, there's nothing wrong with this camera, and people will enjoy it a lot, and it will sell like gangbusters. But I don't know. Let's see what happens. And yeah, like I said, I will continue helping people who want to switch over to the Sony cameras with all of the tips that are already on this channel. And I think one of the most upsetting, although upsetting is a strong word, but it is probably true, is that since they are still catching up of some of these basic features, they're also not jumping ahead. And jumping ahead also means that there are new tricks that Sony could steal, or Fuji could steal, or others could steal, and say, okay, that's really a good idea. Let's see what we can do in the same area. The only thing that I did quite bravely is change the control surfaces, and I think that's the one thing that should not have changed, because I think it makes the distance from all DSLR users to their new system bigger, in fact, than it need to be. Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say is that, jumping a little bit from topic, what I find also a little bit weird is if people are talking about this adapter, that it's working better than other adapters, like the ones on the Sony, which seems to me a bit a weird sort of claim. So if you look at these reviews, most of them say the adapter is fine, it's the best adapter that you can get to support Canon glass. But it sounds a little bit within the limitations of the camera itself. Because if I use a Sigma lens, for example, on a Canon R, and I use the same Sigma lens on a Sony, both with adapters, because that's now a fact of life, one of them is able to do 10, 15 or 20 frames per second. It can do full frame, it can do eye autofocus, it can do tracking much better. So I don't really understand why some of the reviewers are saying that if you want to adapt lenses, it's the better option. Clearly, if you want to do video, you're better off with one of the Sonys or even some of the other brands like Panasonic adapting lenses and doing a speed booster on there than you are on the Canon-R, because at least you have a possibility to get back to this full frame view, and you have some of the features that Canon didn't put in, like on the Sonys, that you can do better tracking of the eye. So it's kind of yeah, I find it a bit weird that the adapter story is sort of also being limited within the discussion of the Canon camera, right? Because if you really want to use some of your old glass and you want to have these, let's call them mirrorless features, most likely the best camera today is again one of the Sonys, which is, yeah, kind of weird. So, sorry for the rambling. Most likely I will get a lot of thumbs down, which is fine. But hopefully you have enjoyed this video at some level, and you might at least have now a space to yell why I'm wrong and why the CPU inside is way better than I think, and why Canon did a good job in releasing more like a medium camera and not one that is really attacking the A7 III, for example, or attacking the Fuji X-T3, or attacking the upcoming Panasonic. Because to me it looks like they are, by the end of the year, they're kind of in the same situation as in the beginning of the year. That is just not enough to keep people from jumping from your platform. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.